So the Turim writes the following. It says that he used to be the one to bring lulavim to the Beis Yisrael on Erev Sukkot. And he brought them based on how the Beis Yisrael liked the lulavim, all of the various chumras, the stringencies about the perfection of a lulav, that the Beis Yisrael loved, of course, the mitzvah of lulav and esrog, so he wanted to have the most beautiful lulav possible. So he would bring him every Erev Sukkot, he would bring him a number of lulavim to choose from. So one year, it was very difficult to get lulavim. I remember a few years ago we had something similar where the lulavim, for whatever reason, just were not in good shape. It was very hard to find a good kosher lulav. So that year it was very difficult to find a very nice lulavim. So what ended up happening was he had to pay a lot of money. Turim says he had to pay a lot of money in order to get the lulavim that the Beis Yisrael liked. And the Beis Yisrael knew that there had been a shortage of lulavim that year. So when he brings the lulavim to the Beis Yisrael, to the Rebbe to look at on Erev Sukkot, the Rebbe was very happy. It was beautiful lulavim. But he knew what was going on. He knew that the lulavim were shvach that year. And so he said to him, he says, how much did you pay for these? So at that moment, the Turim writes that he was very hesitant to say to the Rebbe, and he paused a couple of seconds, and it was very obvious to the Rebbe. He was thinking to himself, well, if I tell him the truth, and let's just say, for example, if I tell him the truth that I paid $100 for the lulav, then he won't want it. He'll say, forget about it. I don't want you to pay that much money for my lulav. Forget about it. So he thought to himself, maybe I'll say it was $50, which is some truth because I did pay $50 for the lulav. I just won't tell him about the other $50. So he's thinking to himself in his mind, like, okay, that's what I'm going to end up saying to the Beis Yisrael. And at that moment, within a couple of seconds, the Beis Yisrael turns to him and says, I forgive you. Don't say a word. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know how much it costs. Because he already sensed that he wasn't going to tell him the truth. So he said, don't even tell me something which is not true. And the Beis Yisrael continued and explained and said as follows. He said, by no other mitzvah in the Torah, nowhere else, does the Torah use the language of harchaka, the language of distance, except when it comes to that which we find in Parshas Mishpatim, midvar sheker tirchak. When it comes to a matter which is untruth, the Torah doesn't say don't say an untruth, don't speak an untruth. The Torah says, tirchak, you should stay far away. The prohibition of lying is such that it's not even just an explicit lie, but even anything that would come to sound like it was an untruth, the Torah says don't even go anywhere near it. And so the Beis Yisrael said here, when it comes to lying, a person shouldn't think to themselves, oh, let me find a heter, let me find some explanation or some reason that I'm not going to tell the truth. He says there are no heterim. He says that's what the Torah means by midvar sheker tirchak, stay far away from that which is untrue. And naturally, we live in a world where sometimes there's sheker all around us. But we need to be able to distance ourselves from that, not get ourselves wrapped up as part of it, but always know that for a Jew, as we spoke about last week, there's a boundary, and when it comes to sheker, the boundary is distance. Stay far away. And that might mean staying far away from certain people who are always telling sheker. And it also might mean in just being straight and upfront with people and not draying around because we don't want to say something that might not work out in our favor. Wishing everyone a good Shabbos.